Back to receding tide again. You were right, you just spoke about Gettysburg, that at the high tide of the Confederacy was January 11th of 63, not at the copse of trees. Why don't you explain that?
The high point of the Confederacy there would be why that day is chosen in January of 63. General Burnside is just about ready to get fired. He's just ready to go on to his mud march that'll cost him his job. General Sherman has not done, Grant has stymied in front of Vicksburg. General Sherman has proved that he knows military literature well. Now, at West Point, I hate to go around left field to do it, West Point did not teach a great captain's course, and they came out good, competent engineers. If you were going to learn anything about by great captains, you had to use collateral reading. It appears that at West Point, the library books you check out are extant. And Grant never checked out books on Bonaparte, on Caesar, Alexander. He checked out romance novels. Getting back to that, Sherman shows he's very fluent in Caesars. As he says on the landing, after he's repulsed at Chickasaw Bayou, instead of I came, I saw, I conquered. I landed at the time appointed, assaulted, and failed. Grant checked up in North Mississippi, and Rosecrans had lost very heavily at the Battle of Stones River. So everywhere you look at that time, the South is apparently doing quite well, and the North is not doing well, as at the time of Gettysburg, Paul, at the Battle of Gettysburg, what happens? General Grant captures Vicksburg that day. What happens in Middle Tennessee that day? General Rosecrans has just maneuvered General Bragg out of Middle Tennessee, and General Bragg is retired across the Tennessee River into Chattanooga. So everywhere you look except at the copse of trees, the Confederates were on the defensive at that time. So there's been that reversal of from the high tide of January to the tide has receded everywhere.
What do you think of how the sesquicentennial is going? There's a loaded question. Has that receded, or are we still going along strongly?
Well, my feeling on the centennial, the sesquicentennial, I think on the local level, there's considerably more interest on the local level. Counties, towns, cities, than there is on the federal government level, which has no commission. I don't think the state of Illinois has a commission, do they?
Yeah.
So I think on the higher leadership of state and federal, they have other problems that they give a higher priority. But I'm very encouraged by the turnouts that they've had for a number of the events that are more inclusive than the ones they had in the centennial. So at the time of the centennial.
Are you finding that the interest in the Civil War over the period you've been doing all this has remained, and it's getting stronger, or remaining, and are we getting younger people involved?
I think we have I see in the last couple of years, there was somewhat of a fatigue that started in the Civil War, following that great flourishing we had of Killer Angels, Glory, Ken Burns' masterful The Civil War, and we need another Glory, we need another Ken Burns or something like that on the mass media. So, but I think I was somewhat of a Pollyanna, if you'd asked me this time last year, because of the failure of the federal government to establish a commission, the failure of a major state such as Pennsylvania to establish a commission and push it. But I think I've been encouraged by what is happening locally, where there was nothing happened at the time of the centennial.
Are you seeing it constant across the country or just in pockets?
No, I see it fairly constant.
Mm-hmm. You don't see anyone, like Virginia thought that they were going to, I think, kind of lead this.
Yes.
And in a way they have been. I think they've certainly been very vocal about it.
Yeah, they have been.
But they've always been vocal. That's okay. The question I'm going to wait for until we have, we're going to bring two others on here in a few moments. You also spoke you wrote in Receding Tide, and I'm sorry the Petersburg book isn't here. I was primed to get into that with you. But the Receding Tide, you mentioned the inter-service rivalries that occurred, playing one upsmanship, especially Army versus Navy. Are there Civil War instances of this? Did it ever affect a battle, actually? Any rivalry between any of the services?
Yes, there's when you say inter-service, I would say you mean between the Army and the Navy.
Probably.
Which would be the two bigger. Yes, there are.
The balloon service
because Mr. Wells knows that the Navy has to have some successes. Because the Navy's success is a blockade, but the blockade is an invisible. It does not get any publicity that the South is being strangled. So it forces the Navy into an ill-advised attack on Charleston that they should never have tried. The ill-advised expenditure on the monitors, after they've once mastered, with the original monitor, mastered the threat of the Confederate ironclad. So I think, yes, there's and the strength of Grant and Sherman is they can bridge the inter-service rivalry between the Army and the Navy. That Sherman loathes General Banks. He loathes General Butler. Grant makes use of them. Mm-hmm. And so they have that problem in their service rivalry.
Is there you do so many tours. Is there a tour that you haven't done yet? You came out and did the Black Hawk War here. I think you've been down to South Africa for the Zulu Wars.
No, I was just planning to go.
You're just planning on that?
Yes,
right.
But never came off.
Well, maybe that's one that you should plan. But is there any one that you have not done, especially in the Civil War? I can't believe there is one, but...
Well, probably in the Civil War ones, I probably have done all that I really lust to do. Mm-hmm. I find that specialized tours go. Now, Smithsonian didn't calculate well in '59. They did not think a Lincoln and Washington tour would go very well. But it went very well, but you have to plan a tour. If it's a 4 or 5 day tour, you have to plan it a year ahead of time. So the Smithsonian missed the boat on Lincoln and Washington in 2009.
Well, of course, that's because the Chicago Civil War Roundtable had you,
Yeah.
and we were going on tours every year. We did that since before I was here in '71, and you were leading many of those.
Yes.
And the Roundtable was one that you were very close to and still are, and we appreciate that.
Yes, second nature.
Yeah. Of course, now that changed. Again, we were talking beforehand. We started this discussion about how Killer Angels changed things, and you saw women coming on. Of course, the Roundtable here had its own women's contingent before it was opened up to them.
Yes.
Called the Camp Followers, if you remember them. So they finally came on board. They were, quote, allowed, unquote, by the membership of the men of the Roundtable, and women came, and the earth did not open up
Nope.
and swallow us, I found.
And I think a few roundtables would have folded if they had to
That's
just rely on the males.
And you know what they were worried about at the time? That you and others, historians, would come in and water down their speeches because estrogen was in the room. And it didn't happen. In fact, I think it got stronger. It got wider. It wasn't just all, and maybe you don't like this, but it wasn't just all battlefield. To me,
No.
it widened out to social, economic, and personalities, a lot more.
No, I think one of the great we just got into one of the great things is a change in people, in the gender of the people interested in the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a number of roundtables would have gone under if it wasn't
Yeah.
for the women, and the women are the leaders in a number of roundtables I know.
This is going to be a brief question, then we have one from the audience before we go on, yes? So, let me just, this is one from Damien again, but very quickly. Of all the great personalities from the Civil War, who would you most like to be? Not Sickles, he hopes.
Well, Sickles is a wonderful person, wonderful for the Civil War. I've gone through so many during my career. It's changing.
Better to be yourself.
Yes.
All right, I like